where did this intercultural practice or policy practice come from, given that it has no conception or discourse of interculturalism? And first of all, the importance of standing up to the National Front in the 60s and 70s, I have to emphasise, laid down a tradition of solidarity, not as slogans, but as an embodied practice. One, unity which included church groups and the left and liberal groups and trade unions. Secondly, in relation to the National Front, their so-called anti-mugging march, it mobilised young black, Asian and white youth, all of them together. And that was, I think, a very important moment of young people coming together and standing up against it. And thirdly, it highlighted that whereas Lewisham Council refused to grant the National Front the town hall, the police defended the National Front march, refused to ban it, and actually broke up the unified march by the All Lewisham campaign against racism and fascism, Al-Karaf. And I think that's very important, because that has meant that the police were on the wrong side historically, and Lewisham Council actually began to, it was the beginning really, of trying to engage with the police to change the attitude and relationship with young ethnic minority people in the borough. And that's a very marked feature of Lewisham practice. And lastly, symbolically perhaps, it was referred to that the murder of Stephen Lawrence, which was very, very important nationally, because it led to the Macpherson inquiry, which defined the police as institutionally racist, and therefore put legal obligations on the police to challenge their practice, although we haven't reached the point that Montreal has, of where the police have stopped racial profiling. And the interesting thing about Lewisham's distinctiveness in this regard is that the Stephen Lawrence Memorial Centre is located within the borough. Although Stephen didn't live in Lewisham, it's located in Deptford within the borough. And that centre, again, supports diverse young people into professional training and careers. Okay. Some of these social and economic conditions which have facilitated de facto interculturalism, we've referred to the diversity of Lewisham. In Britain and in other ex-colonial powers, migration often took a predominant form from former colonies, and that's true generally in Britain. But in Lewisham, you had a much more scatter and diversity within diversity, or what Steve Ertevek has called super diversity, where you're getting global migration, which are no longer linked specifically to ex-colonial territories. And that's where you've got this, what I would argue, is the tremendous interculturality in Lewisham's DNA, in the actual nature of the borough. You have not only 140 languages spoken, but 1 in 3 students in Lewisham schools is bilingual. And that poses a question of how you can turn that into a resource for the city. For example, whether you can get that certificated in schools, whether that will be a resource in terms of new kinds of intercultural mediation and translation roles in later life. So there's an impulse for interaction, which is going against isolation. So the forefront in Lewisham is unity with recognition. And there's been not only the valuing of cultural diversity, but this bringing together through umbrella kind of organisations.